For decades, scientists wondered when humans first reached the Americas. No one knew the answer. The mystery remained open. It was the great unsolved case of human prehistory. For 80 years, textbooks taught one story. They claimed the Clovis people were first. These hunters allegedly crossed a land bridge from Siberia 13,000 years ago. But new evidence has finally settled this question. The debate is over. We now have definitive proof of a much older, deeper history. This discovery connects scattered findings into one coherent timeline. The pieces finally fit together. Now, we have the complete picture. The investigation began at a rock shelter outside Riley, Oregon. In 2011, archaeologists from the University of Oregon started excavating a site called Rimrock Draw. They found stone scrapers made from orange agate in the first season. The material was exotic. It did not exist locally. This discovery suggests these people traveled long distances for quality tools. But the real breakthrough came later. In 2019, they found camel teeth beneath a layer of volcanic ash. The teeth had butcher marks. This meant humans were processing animals for food at this specific spot. This reveal shifted the entire focus of the investigation. To understand the age of these teeth, scientists used radiocarbon dating. This method measures the decay of carbon-14, which is a radioactive isotope. Every living thing absorbs carbon. When it dies, that carbon starts to decay at a fixed rate. By measuring how much is left, scientists can calculate exactly when the creature died. It works like a chemical clock. The results from the camel teeth were startling. The age was not 13,000 years. It was much older, but scientists did not stop there. They needed cross-verification to be certain. The volcanic ash layer provided the smoking gun. Geologists identified the ash as coming from an eruption of Mount St. Helens. They used tephrochronology, which is the study of volcanic ash layers, to determine dates. This specific eruption happened 15,600 years ago. Anything found below that ash layer had to be older. The camel teeth and the stone tools were located significantly deeper than the ash. This sequence of layers is called stratigraphy. It shows what was deposited first. Older material sits at the bottom, while newer material is on top. This physical evidence proved the tools were ancient. 3 independent labs ran the same tests. All 3 arrived at the same result: 18,250 years. This is 5,000 years before the Clovis people were supposed to have arrived. The evidence proves definitively that humans were in Oregon during the last ice age. At that time, massive ice sheets covered much of Canada. Sea levels were 400 feet lower than they are today. This creates a new timeline for human arrival. It pushes the story back to 18,000 years ago. This discovery changes everything we thought about the first Americans. For a long time, the ice sheets were seen as an impenetrable wall. The old theory suggested humans waited for an ice-free corridor to open. But the new evidence proves they did not wait. They likely followed the coastline. To confirm this, we have to look at the Pacific edge. Stand on a bluff on Santa Rosa Island today, and you see the open ocean. But 13,000 years ago, the view was different. The islands of Santa Rosa, San Miguel, Santa Cruz, and Anacapa were joined into one mega island called Santa Rosae. It was 4 times larger than any of the islands today. The shoreline was miles out from where it is now. This place became a stubborn problem in American prehistory. Scientists wondered when humans mastered the ocean well enough to live on offshore islands. The record looked broken because rising seas swallowed the old shorelines. The evidence of early coastal life is now 400 feet underwater. But investigators found a way around this problem. They looked at the northern Channel Islands. Even at the lowest sea levels, there was never a land bridge. Humans had to use boats to get there. In 1959, a scientist named Phil Orr found bones on Santa Rosa Island. They belonged to a man who lived 13,000 years ago. He is known as Arlington Springs Man. This discovery proved humans were maritime experts very early. They were not just big game hunters on the plains. They were sailors. They used the kelp highway. This was a coastal route filled with fish, seals, and shellfish. It provided a reliable food source for people moving south from Alaska. The maritime skill required for this journey was high. But a question remained. Were these islanders the ancestors of people living today? Or were they a group that disappeared? For decades, this stayed open. No one could extract DNA from the Arlington Springs bones. The material was too degraded by time and moisture. This created a drought of evidence. Scientists had the bones, but they lacked the genetic code. They could see the who, but they could not prove the where from. This uncertainty lasted for over 60 years. The answer finally came from an unexpected source. Scientists turned to newer genetic analysis techniques. They used mass spectrometry to sequence ancient DNA from teeth. Tooth enamel preserves genetic material better than regular bone. It acts as a protective shell. They compared the results to modern genomes. This is called phylogenetic analysis. It maps ancestry by comparing DNA sequences. The results provided the definitive closure the scientific community needed. Genetic analysis proves that the people on the Northern Channel Islands were not a lost group. They were the direct ancestors of the modern Chumash people. From at least 7,400 years ago through about 200 years ago, genetic continuity is direct. It is measurable. Modern Chumash carry that ancestry today. This completes the picture. The evidence proves continuity. It is not myth or assumption. It is measured genetic fact. This discovery connects the ancient past directly to the living present. The story is now whole. We know the Northern Channel Islands were a refugium. This is a place where human lineages persisted while others disappeared. The DNA shows it. The archaeology supports it. The environment explains it. There is no remaining gap to fill. The absence of DNA from Arlington Springs Man no longer blocks the conclusion. The surrounding evidence from younger remains and modern descendants closes the loop. Ancient islanders and modern Chumash are part of the same continuous line. The case is settled. To verify the timeline, we must look further back. Scientists have now found human presence in Siberia dating to 23,000 years ago. This matches the genetic data. DNA evidence confirms that a small population was isolated in the region of Beringia for thousands of years. This is known as a population bottleneck. A bottleneck occurs when a population size is greatly reduced. Genetic analysis shows only about 10,000 people survived this period. This is smaller than the student body of a typical university. Your ancestors were among those 10,000 who survived. This discovery connects three separate findings from the 1990s, 2005, and 2019 into one coherent timeline. First, the 23,000-year-old Siberian sites. Second, the 18,250-year-old tools in Oregon. Third, the 13,000-year-old remains on the Channel Islands. The pieces fit. The route is clear. Humans moved along the coast while the interior was still frozen. They lived on the mega island of Santa Rosa. They hunted seals and gathered shellfish. They endured while the world changed around them. The methodology used to prove this is airtight. Scientists used isotope analysis on the teeth of ancient islanders. Isotopes are different forms of the same element. By looking at oxygen and nitrogen isotopes, they can tell what someone ate. The results showed a diet heavy in marine protein. These people were not eating mammoths. They were eating from the sea. This confirms their maritime lifestyle. It proves they were adapted to the coast long before they moved inland. The authority of these findings is backed by major institutions. The Rimrock draw research was published in peer-reviewed journals. The DNA work was verified by labs in both the United States and Europe. Multiple lines of evidence now point to the same conclusion. We have stone tools, butcher marks, volcanic ash dating, radiocarbon dating, and genomic sequencing. Each method confirms the others. This is the hierarchy of evidence. It builds trust through repeated verification. Most people still think the Clovis hunters were the first Americans. You now know the real story before it reaches the general public. The case is no longer about theories. It is about confirmed data. We have the dates. We have the DNA. We have the migration route. Humans arrived 18,000 years ago. They were maritime experts. They survived the Ice Age on the coast. They are the direct ancestors of indigenous communities living today. The transition from the old theory to the new fact is now complete. We once thought humans were limited by the ice. We now know they were not. They used the ocean as a highway. The old Clovis first model has been debunked by the physical evidence at Rimrock Draw and the genetic evidence from the Channel Islands. This is how science works. It moves from less information to more information until the truth is undeniable. The debate that lasted for half a century has reached its conclusion. There was a near-miss moment in this story. If the sea level had not dropped those 400 feet, the mega island of Santa Rosa would never have existed. The early settlers would have had no place to land. If the volcanic ash had not buried the tools at Rimrock Draw, we might never have been able to date them so precisely. We would still be guessing. But the ash was there. The island was there. The evidence survived. It waited for us to develop the technology to read it. The scientific terms might seem complex, but the reality is simple. Radiocarbon dating measures time. Mass spectrometry reads DNA. Stratigraphy shows the order of events. Together, they act like a forensic team at a crime scene. They have reconstructed the arrival of humans in the Americas. They have proven the age of the first settlers. They have mapped the genetic line to modern people. This is the definitive answer to a decades-old question. The existential connection is powerful. This is your origin story as part of the human species. Your DNA contains traces of these ancient migrations. About 2% of your DNA comes from Neanderthals, which happened even earlier when humans left Africa. This specific mixing provided genes that helped our ancestors survive new climates and diseases. It is a record of survival written in your cells. Understanding the first Americans helps us understand the resilience of our species. These communities did not build empires or farm the land. They stayed small and stable. They relied on the ocean. This strategy worked for over 10,000 years. Stability does not always require growth. These people endured through the end of the Ice Age, the rising of the seas, and the disappearing of their mega island. They simply moved to the higher ground that became the Channel Islands. Their descendants are still here. The continuity is unbroken. The decades-long mystery of when and how humans reached the Americas is now solved. The evidence from Rimrock Draw proves the 18,250-year date. The DNA from the islands proves the 7,400-year continuity. The volcanic ash confirms the layers. The 3 independent labs have verified the results. The question is answered. The debate is over. We have the complete picture. The coastal story is no longer fragmented. It is whole. Now we know. The case is closed.